Hello, everyone, and welcome to Stronger Together, a CW Supergirl fan podcast. My name's Snowy.
And I'm Nick.
Today, we're going to be discussing episode 6 entitled Red Faced. Stress makes Kara go too far during a training exercise against a military cyborg commissioned by General Sam Lane, while Kat's mother comes to visit and Wynn helps Alex investigate her father's death.
This episode is interesting. It is one of those episodes that is not necessarily plot driven. Yes, stuff happens in the episode, but there is something else going on behind what is actually presented, textually. Even though in the episode, that is basically what happens. Like, Kara is angry the entire episode. She just thinks that her anger is for something and ends up being about something else. The episode starts with Supergirl flying, which I think is part of season one, like establishing things. The every episode pretty much starts with what happened in the previous episodes, and usually it starts with Kara flying and a voiceover. I don't think this episode has a voiceover per se, but it does have that almost like establishing a scene of Kara flying someplace. And
Yeah.
Alex calls her, like, asking why she's flying, and Kara's like, no, 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 I'm just like, I needed a moment, and it is always so calm up here. Of course, immediately it gets derailed because she hears something and she has to go stop it. And it is two guys, like, racing for some reason whatsoever. They are fighting, and she stops them, avoiding for them to, like, go over kids. But the guy gets agitated and attacks Supergirl, which seems like a little bit, like, I will say the actor is not particularly good, but um, the action seems a bit like, why would you try to punch someone who has impermeable skin? Come on now.
And also super strength. And I will say I actually kind of liked that this episode just opened with Kara's just flying and just being. And I don't know, she just seemed like very calm, very sort of at peace, which is interesting when you think of the rest of the episode in sitting next to this moment for her. Of course, that, like you said, it all escalates because it looked like these two were drag racing, but then they were angry at each other. I don't know, but I do
Yeah.
like how they did the action of her. She like grabs his fist. You can see that she's really frustrated with him, which I think is very understandable.
Yeah, because the thing is that I don't think she was necessarily, like, at peace. I think
Mm.
something was bothering her, and that is the reason why she was flying. It's just that that is the things that I found this time watching this episode, because I have always loved this episode, but this time I found a little bit more flaws on the narrative of the episode. I have always thought about this episode is I do not understand, like, yeah, the reason why they are racing is because they needed Kara to drop in and stop them. But there is nothing, like, I don't know, the extras that they hire for this part of the things were never convincing. Like the racers and the one that throws the punch, they were never convincing to me. But it is, I like how this season was very clear into, yes, people love Supergirl, but there is also people, and Superman, but there is also people that they are not comfortable with the fact that there are aliens and superpower aliens in the thing. And this season was very good in establishing that in the background, that at the
Mhm.
end it will end, in hindsight, it ends helping when you get to season 4, for example, when you actually deal with that.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I do like that it is, that scene pretty much ends with Hank, like, calling Kara, like, what were you thinking? And you can see that Hank is frustrated, but
Mhm.
obviously because you don't know in that moment that is actually John, you cannot see why he's so frustrated about Kara losing her temper. So
Mhm.
it is interesting to see those scenes in hindsight. We know that at this
Mhm.
point, like, they had already planned that was John. We have been building that mystery for the last 4 episodes at this point.
Mhm.
But it basically ends with that part of the episode ends with Hank going, you need to learn to restrain yourself because there's people that is worried about a super with their powers losing their temper and what that entails.
Yeah, and I guess sorry, I'm gonna circle back to like the very beginning again because I will say I do still really love that moment, even if underneath she had something bothering her, because I like that part of her instinct was to actually go flying. Because, like, so much of the start of this show is the fact that she didn't use her powers. She was always trying to hide, always arguably diminishing herself a bit. So I just kind of like that her instinct to sort of clear her head was, I'm going to go fly. And I love that personally. And I think there's something in that scene at the very start that comes back later in a later season, but I'll bring it up when we get there.
Then we have Agent Vasquez, who I'm surprised we haven't actually mentioned Agent Vasquez on all the episodes we have done. Agent Vasquez is pretty standard in the first two seasons.
Hmm.
She comes into Kara and shows her like a news report of Max going at it, and also adding to the fact that people are worried about a super having powers, like an alien having powers on National City. He's criticized Supergirl's action because the way that she dealt with the guy throwing a punch at her, like scared the people and the
Hmm.
kids because it was in front of kids. Then we go to Nunans, where and Lucy are in a lunch date of some kind, and she tells James that her dad is in town and he wants to have like dinner with them. And you can see immediately that James is like he's not okay with her dad. And then Kara comes in, Lucy says hello, and she thanks her, and that she's excited about seeing her later. And Kara,
Hmm.
you can see that Kara is confused about what she's talking about, but she goes along with it.
She handled it pretty smoothly despite her look of like confusion, I felt.
Exactly. But she, of course, she goes to talk to James because she cannot help it.
She
James
still
tells her,
likes him.
yeah, uh, and that is what she thinks is her frustration during the episode, that she thinks she's frustrated about James and Lucy's relationship. James tells Cara that Lucy just told him that her dad is coming to town and that they are going to have a dinner, and he tells her that he like they don't get along, like James and Sam Lane don't get along. James says that is because James consorts with aliens, right? That he has a relationship with Superman. That is the reason that he thinks Sam Lane doesn't like him. That conversation comes to an end when Kara is like, oh, okay, Lucy told me this, that she was excited to see us later. And James is like, oh, yes, I totally invited her to your house to game night. I forgot, I kind of forgot to tell you. To be fair, he doesn't say that, but it is very
Yeah,
funny.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just the whole, it's almost the whole he maybe subconsciously knew Kara would be fine with it or just
Yes.
assumed that, which I already. Poor Kara.
Well, well, to be fair, I, I, I mean, as a viewer, that she's crushing on him, but also from his part, I'm very ambivalent on if he knows about Kara crushing on him, just because it varies from episode to episode.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. In this episode it feels like he's not.
Exactly.
But I think in my head, I think I've started to think of it as I think sometimes he feels he has a moment with her, but it hasn't perhaps been close enough and consistent enough for him to like consciously pick up on the fact that maybe there's something more there, right?
Exactly. But Kara goes back to Katko after that, and we are shown and seen between Kat and her mom, which she mentioned like in the previous episodes. The first time that I watched this episode, I wasn't ready for how much I didn't like Kat's mom.
Okay, can I say I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you here. I know some viewers over the years have had issues with Kat's sort of
Yes.
meanness, prickliness, her
Mhm.
nastiness, but I'm like Kat has nothing on her mother.
No,
Like
literally.
like Kat seems mild in comparison and much more open-minded, I would argue, than her mother seems. So just the contrast of that, I felt very stark in this episode.
But also, that is in this episode, you literally see like, that is the reason why Kat is the way that she is.
Yeah.
She's literally responding to what she learned. Like that, this is her mom. Like she's always fighting with her mom and with her self value and everything she accomplishes to prove her mom. In a way, like to prove her own value to her mom. So you can understand like instantly why she is the way that she is.
Mhm.
That doesn't make that I have to like her mom though.
Exactly, exactly.
But yes, in that scene with Kat's mom, who is also named Catherine, um, you see like the way that she patronizes Kat and why she is the way she is. She calls out like the name of Supergirl, which is something that Kat was like, "Did you even read the article?" And her mom is like, "Oh, I didn't have time. I didn't have time." But yes, when Kara returns to Katko, actually Alex is waiting for her,
Yeah, yeah, it's one of the
which
few times, like, Alex is in Catco, I think, over the years.
yeah, and I think this is the first of like the few times that Alex went to Katko. I think a good chunk of him were in this season actually.
Yes.
But this time she Alex tells Kara that she's not actually looking for her. She's actually looking for Win.
Mm,
And this goes back to the thread that we are going since the last episode
yes.
when Alex and Kara were told that Hank was with their dad when he disappeared,
Yes.
and they don't know anything about it. So they are asking Win to hack into the DEO and figure out like any information about Jeremiah.
He hesitates at first, but then Kara brings up the whole, "Oh, but it's her dad." And then Win is just kinda sighs, and he's like, "You know I have daddy issues." And it's just, like, threading that all in there, in sort of, I guess, the character stuff there and threading it together. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah, I guess
he falls when his story is about her dad because he only gets like half the information about hacking the DEO, and he obviously freaks out, which
mm,
is very Win. But at the end, he says that he's going to do it. Then Alex and Kara get a call from the DEO about going back to the DEO, and they then when they get there, it is actually the arrival of General Sam Lane, and he
mhm,
asks, well, more like orders Hank to transfer commanding orders for Supergirl. And then Lucy comes in and she's like, actually, she doesn't really have a choice. This is an order for the president, which, okay, fair, I guess. But Alex and Hank are like, you don't have to do it because it's Lucy. Kara is like, no, 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 I can do it. I can do it. Totally, I can do it.
she's doing, like, the chest puffing thing,
Yep.
like, "Nope, nope, nope, I can do this." I will say I do like that this scene is back on the ridge from the training sequence from what was that, the 2nd episode? I just thought this was such a
Yes.
beautiful filming location, and, also wanna say this episode, once again, like, these season 1 episodes, like, the lighting, the camera work, like, everyone looks so good, in particular in the scene, and they had to shoot this outside. So just, like, it looks great. I think this is such an interesting filming location. Um, but anyway, yeah. I kinda love the chest puffing. I love that it's between them, it had nothing to do with men. Again, 'cause, we talked about that a little bit the last episode, that some of their interactions, it's more just between them, and I think this is the start of that in the DEO scenes where it's more like Lucy and Supergirl.
I mean, yes and no. A Supergirl is proving herself, right? That
Yeah,
is
yeah.
the thing. But we have to say that the reason why she gets so defensive about passing this test at this point that she thinks it's just a test is
Mhm.
because it's Lucy. And she,
Yeah.
especially in this episode, she is feeling like that there is some sort of competition for James' affections.
Yeah, yeah.
But I do like that it's not overtly about, like it's not in either of them being like quote unquote mean to each other because of James.
Hmm. There's a lack of cat fighting aspect to it
Yes,
that
yes.
is refreshing.
When they go back to Catco in the office that they have set up for, Supergirl things, Kara tells Gwyn and James about the test that she's going to do for Sam
Mhm.
Lane, and immediately James is like, "What? He's coming for you?" And she's like, "Don't worry, it's something like they are testing a drone or something."
Mhm.
She's very much not afraid of whatever this guy is going to put in front of her. James, however, is very like, this. You don't know this guy. This guy is like plain dirty. He hates you, guys. Supers. There is a in exchange between James and Kara about seeing her at a game night, and that is when we realize that Lucy is going to game night, and he says something about like, "Oh, you let him invite her to game night," and she's like, "It's going to be okay. Don't worry, it's going to be okay." But she's like grasping at the normalcy of game night. That is what I like about that scene. It is not the fact that she's worried about quote unquote the Lucy and James of it all, but she's just grasping at keeping the quote unquote normalcy of her life, which I love Kara being like having this duality of wanting the normalcy of being human, quote unquote, but also like wanting to explore her powers. And like you said earlier, like wanting to fly and wanting to do these extraordinary things that she is only able to do on Earth. But,
Yeah. Yeah, it's cuz for me I love that duality because she can have both. She can have it all, and it's also for me the whole thing that ties in with superheroes a lot because Supergirl's not the only one that has this duality or complexity or secret identity thing going on either. Um, is that people have many hats and people are multifaceted, right? They contain multitudes. And I feel the show overall could have done a better job leaning into all these things. But I think in season one, they do explore these things really well. And I think this episode is a good showcase for setting all of that up, I think.
yeah, after that scene with Win in their super office, Kara goes back to Kat's office to tell her like her dinner with in X or Y restaurant is set up for her dinner with her mom.
Mhm.
But then Kat's mother is there, and she cancels the dinner. She says that she name dropped others, and I think you're better equipped to talk about them because I don't know nothing. I recognize Margaret Atwood, and that's about it.
So I did double check something when I rewatched this episode.
Yes.
Her mother says she's going to have dinner with like Margaret Atwood and Toni
Mm-hmm.
Morrison. Toni Morrison was still alive when this episode aired. I did check that. But yeah, so these are like really big, important, like Toni Morrison's was a very big, well, still is, but she's passed away, a very big, important, like American author. And so these are like big names her mother's bandying about, I think trying to make herself feel better because her daughter's the queen of all media. And if you think about it, she's in the headquarters of her daughter's power, right? She's in the seat
Mm-hmm.
of power of her daughter. So I think part of it is the mom feeling this, but lashing out in this way that is just so nasty, unnecessary. It's like, how many years do you have left? How old is your daughter? How old are you? So you can really see the origin of a lot of Kat's sort of knee-jerk tendencies here. And the note that I wrote down when I was watching this episode in this moment between the mother and Kat
Mm-hmm.
is Kat's mother is horrid. And
Yeah, she is.
this is just a horrible moment. And also, something else I noticed at this point in the episode is I think Kara is around here, but her mother also, at this point, does not acknowledge Kara's existence
At all. At
at
all.
all. At all. Like at this point. Uh, Also very telling. right? Like
Yes.
not acknowledging human beings around you, I think is always a very telling thing about people.
But I mean, there is a lot of things that you can feel that is almost like throwaway lines, but it informs a lot about Catherine's like personality. Because I
Hmm.
think I don't remember if it's in this scene or this scene earlier with when Kat mentions like, "Oh, Carter would like to see you," and Catherine is like, "Oh, and I would like to see him." Did he receive like the bonds that I sent him for her birthday? And it is like basically money, right?
Hmm.
She seems like the type of person that will think that money, that throwing money at her problems will solve the thing, right? And this is seen, like you mentioned, she doesn't acknowledge Kara at all in any of the scenes, but also in this scene, it is very clear that she sees Kat's career path as less than
Yes.
her own because
Yes.
she basically implies that she's like a book editor or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um,
She sees Kath's career as lesser than her own, but also like even if you think that Kath is a CEO, she's an editor in chief of her own company. Like that is nothing to sneeze at, and you
well,
think you're better than her.
well, she went so far as to say, "You, what could you possibly?" I think she said something like, "What could you possibly have to discuss with all of these powerful, intelligent women?" Implying that her daughter is
Yes.
not a powerful, intelligent woman who also writes. Maybe it's not. It's such a snooty thing to imply. Oh, it's not literary writing. It doesn't mean it's any lesser. Your daughter
Hmm.
has Pulitzers, I have no doubt. Okay, that's
Yeah.
equivalent. Okay, it's just a different style of writing. It doesn't mean it's lesser.
But it is funny because that is something that sort of carries along the season, not necessarily with Cat, because we know that Cat leaves after this season. But with
Mhm.
Catco, as you know, as a magazine, as a publishing empire, like I remember like when Kara and Clark go to Lena's office, one of the first things that Lena says to Kara when they say that they are with Catco is Lena going, "Oh, this is not a place known for like deep journalism. It is
Mhm.
basically like Jane's like fashion magazine, right?" But it is
Mhm.
something that continues through the entire like show, like diminishing of Kat's legacy, you can say, even.
Mhm.
And you kind of explore it with. I don't remember if it's in this episode. Kat's mentioned that Perry White, name dropping, the editor of the planet, he throws like a chair through a window. But in one of these episodes, Kat says that she was like a gossip writer back in
Mhm.
Metropolis.
Yes,
And I don't know if maybe her mom still sees like what she does as that gossip column writer aspect, that she will
probably.
diminish it in this way. But wow, you can see like how much Kat tries to prove herself and her mom her worth, and probably a lot of the things that she accomplishes is with that thinking in mind. But that kind of reframes like the attitude that Kat has through the show and through the season.
I think so, yeah. I guess the aftermath of this scene with her mom, I think the thing that stood out to me, because of course there's an aftermath, like her mom
Mhm.
leaves. Of course, Kara is there.
Yes.
Finally sort of acknowledged in this moment. And I remember, of course, Kat refocuses on work and uses that as a way, I think, to channel her own frustration at her mom at this point. And
Yes.
she's very dissatisfied with all of the layouts and photographs put in front of her. And I noticed she also very strongly mispronounced Kara's name again. And to
Yes.
me, this was a thread in the season that I think Kat was very. I think by the end of the season, it's implied Kat was doing this very purposely as a way to sort of quietly, without saying it outright, push Kara to be better about speaking up for herself
Yes.
and to be more like, I do not like that, please don't do that, like at least say something. So but it was just also her tone here, you could tell Kat was like feeling sort of the whipping, I guess, her mom kind of gave her verbally with the put downs. Also in this follow-up scene, Kat also calls Kara on her crush on James,
Yes,
which
she
I'm
does.
not sure Kat had said anything before this episode. My memory serving me. I think this is the first time she kind of directly says something to Kara about this. And then she's implying, oh, Kara, you're going to have to stay here all night. But then Kara's like, no, I have game night. So it's like another roadblock against game night. So it's another thing like pinging against Kara's, you know, well, I've looked at it as it's almost like there's this low simmer going on this at this point with Kara. There's a low simmer going on, but it's really a maelstrom that builds. Is this
Yes,
low simmer very much turns into a maelstrom and it keeps going and going and going, and I have something else, but I'll wait till we get a little further along. But yeah, I think this is the moment where I was like, oh, it's all starting to the pot is
this is
stirring, the
starting
pot
to
is
build up.
stirring.
Yes, it starts to build up, and it continues when then you get to game night, and I don't know why Alex wasn't there. Well, Kara
Same.
says that it's like in that scene with
She said
Kat.
office game night, I think.
Exactly, and I think it was like their excuse to say,
Hmm.
like, to explain why Alex wasn't there. But I don't see why Alex wouldn't be there, to be honest, other
I
than to obviously clear out how bad of a couple Kara and Win are, and how good of a couple James and Lucy are.
And I also thought maybe it was a way, even though the show doesn't do a good job solidifying that, you could also almost see it as they're trying to show that eventually all of these people become much more found family than they are at this moment, right?
Maybe, but yeah,
Just
she
because
says
Win
that.
had because I was thinking of the Thanksgiving episode where like Win had never come over for Thanksgiving before,
Yes,
and then he does, and James isn't at that Thanksgiving. He's not there until season 2, so it's like, but I think it was more to show like them being a terrible couple and a good couple at this
yes,
game. Yeah.
they are playing charades, I guess.
Win is terrible at this, by the
He's
way.
terrible. He says nothing.
He's so terrible at this game.
He's just, but also like that is a game that you have to have a connection with the people you're playing with, like you were
Yeah,
your
yeah.
partner. So it makes
Yes.
sense that they will pick this game. Again, Win and Cara terrible. James
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
Lucy, they do have, if not a connection, a familiarity with each other when they can communicate this kind of thing without much
Mhm.
words. But
Mhm.
that is basically a segue for Win's terrible gaming when he says like, "Oh, this one is easy. It's your cousin," and you can see like Kara going, "What the heck, dude?" James doing the same, and Lucy obviously goes over her head because reasons, but it is clearly just plot because that was very clear. But Lucy's like, "Oh, let me see which one that was with, because that makes no sense." And she's like, "Oh, Superman. You could have said like James Olsen, a special friend." What she said something like, which is okay. I see you, Queen. But that is a segue for them to talk about Supergirl. And Lucy says, "Look, oh, I met her today," and she was like, "I'm not impressed," which I think is funny because that is actually I think it's like a continuation of Lucy's insecurity regarding James. Because remember, her insecurity with James is the fact that she like ended the relation previously because James always put Superman first. And now
Mhm.
imagine how will you feel if your boyfriend moves to a city with a super that he is attracted sexually, presumably.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
I understand with why Lucy would say something like that. I
Mhm.
don't necessarily like it because you know you have as an audience a connection with Kara. You know that Supergirl is Kara, so obviously you can see how crestfallen she is when she hears that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm kind of glad these two ended up having good scenes later in the season to
Yes, yes,
counteract this particular one. But this one made sense, like in the episode and at this moment
yeah.
in time. I think it made a lot of sense.
But the next scene is the next day when they will have the test, and the test is we are presented with Red Tornado, who is like
Hmm.
an android controlled by Doctor Morrow. First of all, the fight was really cool.
Yes, I
Uh,
felt so. Yeah.
this is a power that I don't think we ever see Kara using again, like going under the the floor and moving. Uh,
No, we do.
like
We do.
we
Or
do
underground. Yeah, she does it again. Yes.
uh in this season.
Yes, she does it in season 1. Yes.
That is what I meant. We don't never see it past season one.
Sadly, we don't, but it was
Yes,
something I loved that she did. I
which
because to me this was another continuing example of season 1 showing her being smart with
yes,
her powers, even though she's so new to them. Like you can see her ingenious mind. It's like her instincts with her powers are so strong. It's like when she's in a space where she feels like she has freedom. Like she lets her brain out, and I really like that this season shows that. Um
yeah, but
anyway.
that is exactly what I mean. Like, it is funny that we see Kara using powers in this season when she is quote unquote new, that we never
Mhm.
see her using again. And this one always struck me because this one is one of the quote unquote easier like visual effects that we could
Oh
have
yeah,
seen.
definitely. Yeah.
That like she's Melissa Benoist doesn't even have to be in this scene for you to
Oh
create
no, that's just
this
CGI you
VFX.
could do. Yeah, you don't need
Exactly.
anybody.
So for me, it was like, why we never saw Kara using this power again? Like past season one,
They
we
didn't
will never
care.
know.
They didn't
We will
care
never
enough.
know.
Ugh. Because
But yeah,
I know, actually on that point, because I know you and I have talked about this a bit. You know that things cost just from a production standpoint for
yes,
people. It's production people are always worried about things costing money, and the show did not have as much money once it left CBS and went to CW. But I know Nick and I have always talked about there are ways you can get around that in
yes,
script. There are ways like this you can figure out something that, oh, we can do this and it won't cost as much money, and there are things you can do, but you have to like be willing to do it. I think there's something in this season where I've always been like, why don't they at least talk about Kara going other places more? And there is a few times in this season where she's like, oh, I brought you that hot dog from that food stand you like in Chicago. It's like that's just a dialogue line, but it adds a richness to the world for the viewer without adding a big sort of monetary cost, right?
yes,
On
exactly.
the production side.
That is like a conversation we have had so many times about the showrunners and like head writers not caring about those little things that
Hmm.
brings the universe and the world that you are creating, right?
Hmm.
In any case, she fights like Red Tornado. I like the fight; it's really good. But I will
Hmm.
say, I always found it between funny and frustrated. The fact that the General Line comes in like, "Oh yeah, fight this throne," and when Kara defeats the throne, it's like, "You broke the throne, so you owe me," or something like that. Like that
Yeah.
almost entitlement of going like, okay, please test this for me. And when the thing is like not, it didn't have the effect that he expected to have, he gets all
Hmm.
grumpy like, oh, this is your fault. And it is so entitled and so, oh Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
it drives me
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah, it's very much pushing my like lack of, I guess, return on my expectations on you, even
Mhm.
though I shouldn't have had expectations to begin with. I should have just been like, let's see what happens. I will say, and this is going to be the start of me just, I guess, trying to wax poetic about Melissa's acting in this episode, but the intensity she has in this fight that builds, and because it doesn't start at sort of super intense, but it does build. And I don't have enough words to express kind of like the nuance she has with what she's doing. But there's a lot of nuance going on, and you can just see in this episode, you could argue, you could she almost finally really truly like slips into this character. There's something about this episode that I think shifts a lot of things, and it's like things they're doing in the writers room, things they're doing on the production side, things that are happening with the actors. Anyway, but I'll leave it there for now because I have more later when we get to a different scene.
Well, I think I need to mention that the first thing that Red Tornado is presented to DDO and to Supergirl as a drone to fight like insurgents.
Mhm.
It is not presented like for what it is. That it is later
Mhm.
revealed in the episode that is basically a drone to fight Superman and Supergirl and Kryptonians. It was made with that intention, but for I mean, it is obvious that they are actually testing the drone to be ready to fight Superman, not Supergirl. Because again,
Yeah.
this is a show in this season in particular when they are telling you, the audience, that Supergirl is lesser than Superman. And I don't mean like the show is telling you. Like the characters in the show think that Supergirl is like lesser, less,
Yes.
she has less capability, she's less strong than Superman. But
Mhm.
that is the intention of Sam Lane, right? That Sam Lane is using this run to figure out if the drone is ready to go against Superman. That is his takeaway. And that is why he is technically so mad about Kara, quote unquote, breaking his drone.
The girl
But
broke it. Oh my god.
exactly. Yeah, scandal. But in that scene that I have said that I like the fight, it is like you were saying, like Kara has been alone at this point, been very frustrated, and the frustration has been building up. And she said even at this before she started fighting Red Tornado, she says like I don't usually say this, but I'm actually aching to fight, like to have
Mhm.
a fight, like physically fight and punch something. So I think it was like the brewing of the thing, and when she's fighting, it clearly let it sleep for like a second extra, and that is when the drone like disconnects itself from the Doctor Morrow and he escapes.
Mhm.
Supergirl like breaks the arm of the drone, and he flies away, and then it creates quote unquote panic because they cannot find it, right? Because
Mhm.
Morrow says something about that he went into cloaking mode or something like that.
Mhm.
In that moment, General Lane fires Dr. Morrow, and they drops number at you like we were developing this drone for 11 years and however many millions of dollars and blah 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 blah. He also says that when they find Red Tornado, they need to destroy it, which also sets up Morrow, because he says this is my life's work and you're just simply like going to destroy it.
That's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, yeah. Who could have told you that the guy was going to fly off the hinge? Then we go to Kat in Katco, calling for Kara for quote unquote a minute and a half, being not being there when Kara.
In her name incorrectly, actually.
Yes, but also like Kat is obviously frustrated about the entire thing about her mom, and finally because she has been berated at the DO for losing Red Tornado, right? She's frustrated about James and Lucy and the connection that they have. She's frustrated about so many things, and this is like the straw, right? Cat screaming at her, and she loses it. She's like, "Stop screaming at me! I'm so tired of you screaming at me. I do my best. Please stop being so mean." And immediately she herself is like, oh shit.
Yeah. No, no, no. It's one of those things where I have to say the things the car says to Kat uh, in on a large level are justified, but it's the wrong way to say them. There are more professional, polite ways to say what she said. But like you said, this was like her last straw. Everything snapped. But the way that she reacts, like, oh my god, she realized it right after she did it. It was like right after she let it out. She's like, I
He
shouldn't have
said
done
it
that.
and immediately goes, oh, I shouldn't actually have said that. But I love that Kat is just looking at her and she's like, okay, grab your things, let's go. And Kara's like, go where? I'm like, shop shop. The iconic shop shop. But they go to a bar and they start talking, and I remember that when this season was airing, one of the main criticisms of the show was that it was like beating you in the head with the feminist agenda. And the thing is that none of the things that Kat says is wrong or false.
She
It
actually
is just
gives
that
good advice here, I think.
she does. But it is like we as human, we don't like to be called out. We don't like to be told that X or Y that we are doing is wrong. But the things that
Mhm.
she says are very basic feminism 101.
Yeah.
She's basically like, I understand that you're frustrated. I know that I don't treat you that well. being polite. I don't treat your job well, but you cannot lose your temper. You are a
Mhm.
woman in your place of employment, and that this is when she mentions like the Perry White thing that I mentioned earlier about him
Yeah.
like throwing a chair through the window, I should say. And she says like, imagine if I did that. Kat says
Yeah.
like, if I did that, I will be finished. That like that will be the end of my career. And she's right. This is the thing.
Yeah.
She is so
Yeah.
right, and she tells Kara a very sage advice about finding why she's actually like mad and angry. But it is a funny scene when she says like, "You are not actually angry at me," and Kara's like, "No, yeah, I think I am. I think I because you know
She
she
is, but
was
there's something
angry.
else going on as well. But yeah.
She exactly she was angry at Kat, yes, but there was something like an underlying frustration about that.
Yes.
In that scene when they and it is basically Kat ends up like drunk out of her tits.
Iconic.
Alcohol doesn't really affect Kara, but even then, Kara is like quote unquote not drinking. And to be fair, they are supposed. I will always be confused about like the time of the day that they are in this show, because
Mhm.
it is implied that it's like maybe the middle of the day when they get
Yeah.
out of Catco, but you see that that scene is concurrently with the dinner between James and Lucy and Sam Lane, which is at night. Right. So I will
Yeah.
always be confused. And this is not something about this show, by the way. This is something that happened in every show and any show, unless they are like very purposeful
Meticulous.
about,
Yeah.
yes, about what type of the X or Y scene is happening. But in concurrently with that scene between Kat and Kara, there is this scene between Sam Lane, Lucy, and James when they have a very tense like dinner scene.
So
And
awkward.
there's a lot to talk about in this scene actually. First of all, I don't know why Lucy will stand up and leave them alone.
I wouldn't have. I
I
absolutely
wouldn't.
wouldn't have.
I absolutely wouldn't have. Like, what do you mean you're going to leave your boyfriend that you know doesn't like your dad, and your dad that you know doesn't like your boyfriend alone in a restaurant? You're crazy, girl. I cannot stand by your choice.
Mm-mm. Bad choice. Bad decision.
But in that scene, Sam Lane tells Jimmy that he likes James. He doesn't like James with Lucy because he thinks, Sam Lane thinks, that Lucy can do better and that James, he's not good enough for Lucy. And obviously, it wasn't said in the episode. But there are things that are implied when you cast a black guy in this role, and you're going to have this conversation.
Yeah, it was a not great choice, I think. Um Dialogue wise and just relationship wise to set it up this way. That her dad had such an issue with James. I just it did not feel good when I watched it at the time, and it doesn't feel good now.
The dialogue and the acting does imply that it's because he's just a journalist, a photojournalist, because he says like you're a glorified paparazzi. But it does have that undercurrent when you add up that James is a black guy. So it
Mhm.
does have that in undercurrent of messaging, which I don't know if you could have avoided given the casting. But
Yeah.
also I'm like, it is not really said that was the reason, but it does give you like, oh, Sam Lane, you're such an American military guy.
Well, also because also the way he treats
Superman.
Supergirl as well
Yeah.
and Superman. I just like he's maybe they wanted somebody in this episode who had those kind of stereotypes, but it still does not come off as good. It's
Well, to
very
be
awkward
fair,
and uncomfortable, but
it is awkward and uncomfortable, but to be fair with Sam Lane, which again, kudos to the actor because I cannot understand this character. But this is a character that is almost universally not particularly like in any like iteration of the character, be it like shows, comics. Like at the best, you can have him have a sort of cordial relationship with Superman and Lois. Yeah, in whatever iteration. But when they come out of the restaurant when they're having their dinner, uh, red tornado attacks. Right,
Mhm.
James immediately like presses the watch that he has to call Supergirl. And this is another of the things that I will never understand. Kara hears the beeping of the watch and immediately goes to help. But in that exact moment, she was helping Kat walk because she was drunk. Where
Mhm.
did Kara left? Where did she leave Kat?
Yeah, I think it would have been better. I thought that when I watched this too, it almost would have been better because Kat was clearly drunk.
Mm-hmm.
Almost would have been better to show Car speeding her somewhere safe. And then, because I don't think Kat would have been as aware enough of her surroundings to be like, "Oh, where am I now?" I don't think she would have thought anything of it because she was so drunk. And then show her going off to help because she has super speed. Like,
I mean, it is obvious that they were implying that she was walking Kat towards a car that was waiting for her because
yeah,
that is how
yeah,
they move. Like Kat, Lena, they do have like always a car waiting for them. But I think the scene would have worked better if Kara and Kat were closer to the car. Like instead
yes,
of
yeah,
inside the bar or restaurant or
yeah.
wherever they were like in the walkway. Like Kat entering the car, it would have worked better because then you have an audience with these questions like, where did she leave Kat? But anyways, that is basically nitpick in the episode.
Yeah, yeah,
Kara fights with Red Tornado, and Red Tornado actually throws Lucy pretty far and pretty away and
yeah.
pretty hard. I'm surprised
Mhm.
that she is not more injured by the end of the
Same.
episode. But that is a line actually in the episode. Like, you're pretty okay. I'm surprised that you don't have anything broken. But Kara saves the lanes. Red Tornado actually creates a tornado
Mhm,
to use to escape because he sends like a tornado towards the civilians, and
mhm.
Kara, Supergirl, because she's going to save obviously the civilians. Red Tornado escapes.
She looks so cool flying in the tornado though.
Yeah.
Like the actual sequence here I thought looked great. And it was so cool to just see her fighting against like that sort of thing. Just again another cool little thing they did in this episode.
Yes. Again, it is the budget that CBS had for
Yeah.
this.
Yes.
You had the budget to do
Budget
all the
and care.
special
Budget
effects.
and
Yes.
care.
Yes. Yes. We will always miss the show that could have been with Ali Adler at the helm.
Every day. Every day.
But in other scene that was happened earlier, Alex went to Lord Technologies to ask Max for help finding Red Tornado. And it's
Yes.
another of those things that they were setting up Alex and Max having something. I will never buy it.
Yeah, I will say about this whole thing, I do think the actors are both very good. Like
Yes.
I maybe don't fully buy into it, but I could see how other people could have particularly at the time because the actors are very good and they do have a good rapport on screen. My note about this smaller scene, this is when he's like examining the red tornado
Yes.
arm and
Yes.
she brings it to him because they have another scene later, but is he said one of Supergirl's monikers, which is the Maiden of Might.
Mhm.
So again, this is once again this season in particular trying to slip in little things that it doesn't really matter if you don't know that that's a reference, but if you do know it's a little Easter egg, it's very fun. I think these types of scenes where he's again, they established him as an antagonist, right? But also he's does do some good things. I think this is a good example of how they did use him well. Like this type of scene where he's kind of helping them figure something out, I think is was a good use of him in season 1.
But it's also like one of the things that actually calls in the dialogue of the episode because every scenes that he has with Alex, and to be fair, he only had scenes with Alex in this episode.
Mhm.
She knows that it was him that created the bombs and was behind the bombings on the previous episode. And Max
Mhm.
is like, "Oh, you have been talking to Supergirl. She doesn't really have anything, basically." And
Mhm.
basically, Alex like trying to get help from him by like, okay, you say you're good, prove it to me and
Mhm,
help me with
mhm,
this thing. And he kind of does, but kind of doesn't. And this is
mhm,
basically Max all the season that he's there, like kind of doing, kind of doing nothing. So, but
mhm.
yes, in after the attack of Red Tornado, they are at the DEO. They examine Lucy that Lucy is okay.
And Lucy says, "Thank you for saving me," to Supergirl.
Yes. Yes, she does. But in that moment is when that is when Hank said like, "Oh, this android, we cannot detect it because it has lead. You didn't make this android to control people. It was to fight Kryptonians, to fight Superman.
Mhm.
That he actually owes his gratitude about being actually alive to Supergirl, the person, like the people that he hated. Then Lord calls Alex to tell her that he figured out something about Red Tornado, that he wanted to help her. And he says that she's looking for Frankenstein monster instead of looking for Dr. Frankenstein. And
Mhm.
Taps tips Alex that they need to look for Morrow. And they figure out that that is the reason why Red Tornado is attacking General Lane, is because Dr. Morrow is in a revenge path because he fired him. After
Yeah.
that, we get that scene with Kara and James. Kara calls James, and she has like a garage with a car and a punching bag, and it is for them to vent their frustrations because Kara took Kat's advice to heart. She is looking for the anger behind the anger.
To her credit, she found a healthy way to sort of,
Yes,
get that emotion back in place, right? It's a controlled environment, you know.
I love this scene. This is the scene that I think makes, well, this scene and another one uh,
Yeah.
more by the end of the episode, that make this episode cement what they were trying to say.
Yeah, this scene's beautiful, honestly.
It is amazing. It is amazing. Kara mentions that she is mad about how Kat treats her and she's punching the car. James says that he is frustrated about General Lane and the way that he treats him and the way that he sees his relationship with Lucy and how he thinks that he's a good for nothing kind of guy.
Mhm.
And Kara says that I don't know if she says it actually, that she doesn't like. She says something about General Lane as well, that she doesn't like General Lane.
Mhm.
But she comes to a point when she actually breaks the car, which is crazy. Like
Mhm.
she breaks the car, and James is like, "What happened?" And she has this amazing line that she's like, "Seeing you and Lucy makes me think that I will never have what you two have, like a partner that knows everything about me."
Yeah, yeah, she'll basically never. I think she also says, like, my life stopped being normal the second my parents put me in that pod. And it's
Hmm.
like almost her realizing on Earth she hasn't felt normal since she was put in that pod because her whole everything that she knew is normal literally exploded in front of her eyes,
Yeah, yeah. It
and
that is
it's
parasoma, right? This is something that
yeah,
we never address. Maybe past this season we get like
not
glimpses,
really.
but we never address it, and this is
I
address it,
should
and
say
this is
to
the,
Melissa's credit, we get glimpses of it
yeah,
more so
yeah.
than the writers, but
We do get glimpses of it, but we never go. And I know that this is supposedly not that kind of show. They could have done a little bit more of trying to explore, even if it wasn't like explicitly said in the show. They they could have done a little bit more, and that is my frustration with season 3 mostly, but we will get there
it's the
at
seasons
some
because they
point.
explore other characters' trauma in a granted, you could argue in a basic way, but they do it more with them than they ever do with Car the whole rest of the show. Like
Yes.
literally the entirety of the rest of the show. And that's why I get angry about it because every other character we do this with, but not your protagonist. Okay then. Don't agree with you, but that's a choice.
But yeah, in this scene, she says that. But I will say something that I should mention because I talk about it in this scene with between James and General Lane. Kara says something when she presents James with the punching bag and the car. She
Yeah.
says something like, I need to find something to vent my frustrations because I cannot necessarily like join a gym. And James
Mm-hmm.
replies like, well, yes, you it's not like a black guy can present himself like be violent without another a thing like another connotation. And I did like that they mentioned this in this scene
Yes,
because
yeah.
it is something that, like I said, it wasn't necessarily implied with his conversation with General Lane, but it is something that you cannot not see when you have an actor, a black actor, being
Yes.
James, the character James.
Well, in this scene at the start there, like you were saying, my note was actually a little bit more blatant. Mine was like, this scene is really about showing how it's very difficult for women and black men to show
Yes,
anything other than positive emotions. If they show
exactly.
anything like anger or negativity or anything else like that, like it's suddenly not okay. But it's
Yeah,
okay if white men do it. And I do think this scene is very important for that as well.
yeah. But yes, this is when Kara, quote unquote, finds the anger behind the anger. She realized that yes, she's mad with Kat about the way she treats her, and she's mad about her frustration about not being with James because he's in a relationship with Lucy because she attributed her short fuse to her frustration about seeing Lucy and James. But in this scene, she says like, I am more worried about never having why that relationship that I do want, but also I'm frustrated because I'm mad that I cannot be normal because my life
Mhm.
ended the moment that my parents put me in that pot and I saw my planet explode.
Mhm.
Again, that is a trauma that Kara has and probably will always have in any iteration of the character.
Mhm. I wanted to say here, I do like how this scene builds for both of the actors here. Like they didn't just do it as a, oh, boom, there it is. It's like they're going through this sort of progression of things that are, picking away until the layers until they find the real thing. And of course, I don't know, there's a lot going on in this scene. The humor of her punching through the car, of course, that's funny, even though, we're supposed to be like, oh no, she's really angry, or oh no, you can hear the frustration in her voice. And I don't know, just the whole nuance here. I think I really liked the moment how Kara like hesitated to take her glasses off in front of James, which I thought was an interesting choice acting wise. I think an important one, but also just nice little things like that. I will also say a shout out to Blake Neely here. There are hints in the music here of a scene that's gonna happen later that is arguably like the twin scene to this scene. It's specifically for Kara. There's some things he does with the music cues here where he's hinting at it already. Um, I don't know. I just circling back to I think the big thing for Kara is her normal life was taken away. This is the first time she says like it's almost like her saying perfect partner game night. She just wants someone to see all of her. And I think that is also a core of Kara, particularly in this show. And it all kind of starts in this moment here. I don't know. I think for me, I guess, still talking about the scene, rewatching it now, I remember when I watched it live, it felt huge, like in the moment. It felt like, my gosh, did this show just find itself? And I don't know, just the scene is still really beautiful for James and for Kara. Like I love this scene for both of them. I think it's arguably one of the most beautiful scenes in the show.
No, for me, this scene is one of the best scenes of the season. It almost sneaks up on you in the same way that it
Hmm.
sneaks up on Kara.
Yeah.
I did like at the time that this was one of the reasons as to why Kara and James are in this season being written as like you guys have these much things in common that not many people can relate to, like
Yeah.
because they are in this season they are being written as you guys will be a couple, and
Mhm.
this is one of those scenes that work really well in establishing why they work together. And
Mhm.
my thinking about this, how this season is very different to the rest of them.
Mhm.
Obviously, we have the change of showrunner and we have the change of networks, and that is why a lot of the things that we might think about episodically what happens in this season, it kind of gets lost when we change networks. But at
Mhm.
this moment, when I first saw this show, I was like, I understand why you're building up James
Them.
and Kara as a them, as a couple, as a relationship that you want to explore.
Well, because they do really connect here. Like, even in a little thing, I'm remembering something James said after Kara's like very heightened punch right through the car reaction. He's not scared. He's just kind of confused. He's just kind of like, are there extra emotions on Krypton I'm not aware of? Like,
Mhm.
I think a lot of other people would have been scared of her. And I
Yeah,
like that he wasn't. I love that he wasn't.
I mean that is exactly what the episode was doing, right? Remember, one of the first scenes is Hank telling Kara, like, you have to remember that there are people that are scared about aliens and Kryptonians going around, and it is not necessarily because they have power; it's because they what they could do with those powers, right? That
If they lose
base fear.
control.
Exactly, that base
Yeah.
fears that as humans we might have. But yeah, you're completely correct in saying that he's not necessarily scared, he's more like confused and
He
worried
wants to
about
understand her
Kara.
and worried. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will say before we move on, as a glasses wearer, it was painful to see Kara putting her glasses in the back pocket of
Oh,
her jeans.
yes. Yes. I think anyone who wears glasses is like nobody who actually needs glasses would do that. But
But yes, it is. I'm like, oh no. But
they're going to
yes,
be so scratched.
to scratch. After that, Kara gets a call from Alex that they know how to find Red Tornado and Dr. Morrow.
Hmm.
They track, well, they use General Lane, like, drag out Red Tornado, and they locate where he is and Dr. Morrow is. Alex goes alone to fight Dr. Morrow for some reason. I don't know why she would go alone, but she
Yeah,
does.
that was a
Uh,
little.
that is strange. The DEO is supposedly an equivalent to the FBI, so I don't know why she would go alone. But she finds Dr. Morrow, who's wearing like a crown technology thing that he uses to control Red Tornado. He says the name. I do not remember it. It's irrelevant. But while Alex is fighting Dr. Morrow, Kara is fighting Red Tornado. And she like distracts him with missiles, and then they start fighting. Again, the fighting excellent. I found both fights, Kara and Red Tornado and Alex and Dr. Morrow, very well
The
choreographed.
cross cutting, the mirroring. Yes, it was all excellent, supremely done.
Yeah, exactly. But then Alex, obviously, she doesn't go with the intention of killing Dr. Morrow,
Mm.
but he is very much of that mindset. Like, if you want to stop Red Tornado, you are going to have to kill me.
Hmm.
And they fight for the gun. At the same moment, Red Tornado is like suffocating Kara. But Alex does shoot Dr. Morrow and kills him. Red Tornado stops for a moment,
Hmm.
and then it comes back online. And Kara's like, hey, this thing is fighting again.
Still on. Yeah.
This thing is going at it again. And Alex is like, it's gone sentient. I cannot stop
Mhm.
it. And then we get the fantastic,
The moment of this
the
whole
moment
episode
of
for
the
me.
episode. Yeah, the moment of
Chills
the
every
episode.
time. I get chills every time we get to this scene.
And this is the scene where you were saying about Blake Neely's music. I
Yes.
think this is the scene that always comes to mind for me when I think about Supergirl's powers. And
Yeah.
we always talk about Kara's trauma. This is the
Yeah.
scene that always comes to mind for me.
Yes.
And the track is called Harnessing Anger.
Yes.
So I love this scene. This scene is Kara using her heat vision to defeat Red Tornado. And it
Hmm.
is basically she uses so much power that he basically explodes.
Yeah.
In the meantime, she's like thinking about Krypton exploding and the way that she had to say goodbye to her parents. These flashbacks that we get basically only in season one,
Hmm.
but this is one. The music is fantastic. Harnessing Anger is an amazing track.
Yeah. Warning everybody, I'm gonna get on a little bit of a soapbox here. But I love the progression in this scene. It feels like an unlocking and an unleashing everything that is raw in Kara's soul. If the previous scene with James and her is about the anger behind the anger, I think this scene, in some ways, is the core of Kara. Here is all the rage and the loss behind her anger. This is the real core. In a lot of ways, this scene encompasses completely who Kara is. So for me, this scene is a masterclass. In the scene setup, the writing, the direction, the cinematography, the music, the acting, everything is done perfectly. Every department is working towards showing you who this character truly is. And boy, do they succeed. And I think what makes it hit harder is it is somewhat not expected because we had that previous scene where she's like, "Oh, I understand my anger behind the anger." We're not expecting Kara to have this intense of a moment at this time. I will say once again, Melissa Benoist makes you believe. And I mean that in capital letters across the sky. She takes us on a journey with Kara in just this 30-second moment. And that is not light work. Melissa is Kara Zor-El, and the audience never questions it. The way she emotes with her entire being, the conveyance of emotion, and her utter and complete conviction in this moment for this character, and that stays true in the rest of the show. To focus on a specific aspect of this moment, rage is such a difficult emotion to convey on screen. I think what Melissa does here is capture and depict rage in a way I have rarely seen on screen. And this is a very critical aspect of Kara Zor-El as a character, this loss and this rage that she has over everything that's happened because it's such a deep trauma. You really feel it in your bones. You want to rage with her and you want to cry for her. Melissa really inhabits this character. Arguably, in this episode, and I think specifically in this moment, you really, really feel not just Kara take on this mantle, you feel Melissa really take on the mantle of being this character. And you really, really want to see the rest of what she's going to do with this character. Just the sheer passion and raw emotion you can feel pouring out of her, not just in this scene, but in the entire episode. I remember the first time I saw this scene, I just froze in place. Because for me, it really did kind of come out of left field after the previous sort of reveal with her and James. I felt her loss and uncontrollable rage, all of her pain. And it was like a freight train hit me. Suddenly, it felt as if the character had been fully brought into focus. I was already here for Kara's journey, but damn, it became something so much bigger. I've always said Melissa deserved an Emmy just for this 30-second scene. And that might sound insane, but I stand by it. And I think that is still true. And I do think if things had gone differently and maybe people had stayed passionate about her character, I do think this show would have been a game-changing superhero property because I think somebody would have won an award for being a superhero. And being one you wouldn't think someone would get an award for playing because I think on the surface, Kara can seem, like what she is. She is a very hopeful character despite everything, but there's a lot of complexity going on. I will add, I also swear you can feel the commitment Melissa has to this part and also just how natural she is. That is true talent and skill combined. She has what I've started calling like this classic Hollywood acting ability, this full body acting that we don't see as much anymore. She's doing so much and it all feels natural and in character. And it's just delightful and honestly moving to watch the way she gives the audience every facet of Kara. What an utter gift of a performance. I've always felt sure maybe the show has its flaws, wasn't always well executed, but what a delight to have Melissa as Kara. I have always thought people remembered Supergirl because of Melissa's performance. Maybe they only saw an episode, but her performance is so true, so strong, so genuine. that it stays with you. And I don't think it is going too far to say Melissa is the reason we got more Supergirl comics. Looking at you, Woman of Tomorrow, and why we are now getting a solo Supergirl film. So thank you, Melissa Benoist. Melissa brought this character into focus and into the light when she had lingered so long in the shadows of obscurity.
Yeah, it is not a secret that DC tried for years to bury this character. Like, this is the show that made Supergirl prevalent again in comics. And like you said, this is the show that, as much as people dismiss it and say that it's just, a little show with bad effects and whatever, Melissa was always like the embodiment of the character. And it brought Supergirl as a character at the forefront of the conversation behind the scenes on DC, to the point that, again, she is going to be the second character to get a film in the new era of movie that we're just starting. I will say that I love about this scene exactly what you mentioned, but also there is the music, the editing, the direction as well, and that scene is amazing. Obviously, Melissa's acting, because even if there are no actual lasers coming out of her eyes, because she's not actually an alien, you can see the raw emotion that she's conveying in that scene that has zero dialogue. I love the use of slow motion and the silent screaming they use in that scene, and the flashback to drive home the fact that Kara is using quote unquote the anger behind the anger that she figured out during the episode, and the frustration that she has been feeling and bottling up for years to fuel her powers and defeat Red Tornado. Because at that point, you have been told that she's frustrated about feeling that she's never going to be normal, right? And that she lost her life the moment that she was put in that pot. But yes, she does defeat Red Tornado. Hank is very worried in comms. He says, "Yes, I'm okay. He is I beat him." After that, we get a scene with Win, Alex, and Kara on Kara's apartment. Win did hack into the DEO, and he found a file that was redacted about Jeremiah's disappearance, and he tells Alex and Kara what happened. And the information that they do have in this moment is that Hank Henshaw and Jeremiah Danvers went to a crash site in South America, and they both disappeared. They are declared dead until 1 month later, when Hank Henshaw returns with no physical scraps of what happened, and he claims that he has no memories of what happened when they disappeared. Obviously, Alex is very suspicious, so is Kara. But after that, we do get a scene at Catco between Kat and her mom.
Can I just say Cat with the sunglasses on, clearly hungover, just staring at the TVs, just
It's crazy because Calista doesn't even
perfect.
move. She's like just sitting there, and you know that in the back of her mind she just hear like blah 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 about her mom is going on and on and on and on. And then Kara comes into the office, and Kat's mom starts screaming at her about not having like a car to get
Oh,
her
for
to
the
the airport.
airport, yeah.
But that is the moment that Kat actually reacts, and she moves in her chair and tells her mom, like, you can scream at me all you want, but do not mistreat my employees. Like, Kara, I don't even pay her enough for you to be screaming at her. She does an excellent job. Do your things yourself. And apparently her mom is so startled by that response that she's
And then
like,
Kara being Kara is like, "Do you want me
yes,
to get a car for her?" And then Cat's like,
she
"She
can
can
take
take
her
her
broom.
broom."
Just give me an Advil. But Kara is actually like, thank you for saying that I do a good job. Like, Kara is like, it was just for emphasis.
It was for show, Kara.
But you know that she actually believes that. But in that moment, actually, Kat drops her glass or something like that. And Kara being Kara, of course, she's like, oh, don't worry, I will pick it up. But she actually cuts herself. And this is the first time that Kara has bled in however many years. In a few seasons, we do get a few, extra explanations. But even if it was something, it was at least like 10 years that she hadn't bled or hurt herself. So the episode ends with Kara being surprised that she can actually be hurt. And that was episode 6.
I thought this episode, I forgot that this one had such a good sort of
Yes.
cliffhanger. The way sort of the one with the interview with Kat had. I was like, "Oh yeah, it did." But just this episode, I don't know. I think for me, I was trying to remember how I felt when I watched this episode live. I think my reaction to it was just, "Wow, I want to see the rest of Kara's journey." I was completely locked in and was like, "I have to see the rest of this." Like this episode feels like they found what they wanted the show to be from like a character standpoint, right? Plots are plots, but I just mean like emotionally, I think they had found like this is what we're doing with this character. This is where we want to go. This is what we're going to want to do. And I know there's always the argument that, oh, protagonist heroes are boring or whatever and their journeys aren't interesting. And I think Kara just bucks all of those trends and all of those what I think are not well informed understandings of what heroes are. And I think Kara is a good use case for heroes question what they're doing and they can have flaws and they have difficulty just like anyone else. And I think in a lot of ways what she's going through feels extremely relatable, even though she is an alien, even though her trauma is something I think would be really hard for a lot of other people to understand. But I think people can understand having something
Yeah.
traumatic happen to you and it affect you. And I think in a lot of ways, this episode is almost a showcase for why Kara is so relatable on a multitude of levels. And I don't know. I was just super excited to see the rest of this character's journey. I
I honestly
just
don't remember what I thought at the time, fresh out of watching this episode, without the context of the rest of the season. I do remember liking this episode in particular. Again, I think for me, if you ask me about music from the Supergirl show, I think the first one that comes to mind is Harnessing Anger. It is one of my favorite
yes.
pieces of the music from the show. And don't get me wrong, again, Blake Neely did a fantastic job creating the music for the entire show and the entire Arrowverse. But for me, this is the track that plays in my mind whenever I think about superhero theme songs. At the very least from the Arrowverse, I will
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, if I was gonna ask him about one track and creating it, I think it would be the Harnessing Anger because I think it's just I can't even describe in words how amazing that track of music is. It's
Absolutely.
everything.
And another scene that always comes to mind for me, it is actually the scene between Kara and James, the kickboxing scene. I think it is one of the most clear scenes of Kara expressing what she wants. And this is something that actually it
Yeah.
is sad to think that she never got, and that it was like a partner who knew everything about her. And you and I have talked about how she
Mhm.
did get the partner, but it was never said explicitly because her partner happens to be a woman.
When I watched the
Mhm.
finale of this series live, the scene between her and James talking about that
Yeah.
went through my head and I was sad because there's something rewatching this scene, this episode for the podcast. This episode for me is still one of the best of the whole show. But that scene, it's such a raw, honest thing to want. And the acting in it and the way that James immediately understands that what she wants. Like he gets it because I think
Yeah.
in some ways it's something everybody wants. Even if maybe you don't want it romantically, it's you want somebody in your life who sees you and understands you completely and whatever. And
Because of the context of this scene, and how she said it, she is
yeah,
saying
yeah.
it in a romantic way. Because again,
Romantic
you
sense.
can
I agree. I
argue
agree.
that she did find her perfect partner, and that partner was Lena, but it was platonic. But because this scene that that this is a desire that she had was with James, a character that at the moment she had a crush and was romantically interested in, that she means it in a romantic.
She absolutely
Exactly,
means
in
it
a romantic
romantically. Yes.
scenario.
And she deserved
Absolutely,
that and she
absolutely.
never got it. So,
It is
which
an
is
error.
angering.
We harness anger into doing this podcast again. So
This is
no
true. This
hate.
is actually
Um,
true.
but yeah, I did like this episode, seeing it live, and still like this episode as much as I don't watch season one as much as the rest of the show.
This episode is kind of the culmination of them being like,
Yeah.
she's not Superman. Like, literally, she's not
Hmm.
Superman. She's her own person. And I feel like that's what this show accomplished, is bringing this character into the light, and she is literally her own person. I don't even know how to describe it. I'm using person specifically because in this show she's
Yes.
not a teenager. She's not relegated
Background
to
character.
being background character as a side note in some crossover with Superman. She becomes her own fully grown person because of
Yeah.
this show specifically. That had not really happened in the comics prior to this.
But that was the episode for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm very excited to talk about the next episode, which I think it flows really well from the cliffhanger ending of this one. But we will see you next time.
Thank you everyone for listening. I hope you enjoyed. El Mayara.
El Mayara.